All right, so again, just here is some basic information about the session. So we have our title here. If you would like to elevate the session through social media, here's the hashtag that you'll be using throughout the conference. And then I do encourage you, if you have not yet done so, to open up this presentation, as there are going to be links that you'll be asked to access. And so you'll want to not just be looking at the presentation on my screen, but also have the presentation up so that you can interact with it. To introduce yourselves, I had asked for you to tell us who you are, what you do, where you work, and then name a resource that you could not function without. So that could be a digital tool, it could be a program that you use, it could be a person that is your thought partner. So I hope that you have started sharing resources and ideas and best practices that help you function effectively through that chat introduction. If you've not yet had an opportunity to do that, please go ahead and do that. It's super important that educators and that especially educational leaders take the time to connect with others so that you always have that sounding board, that person that you can share with. So this is just a little bit about me. My name is Jennifer Graham. I work in Cumberland County Schools. This is, I think, going into year 27 for me. I'm the Innovation and Strategic Development Facilitator, which is a super fancy way of saying that I work in the Professional Development Department. So I work with both some online and some face-to-face professional development options. In this session, I really want for school leaders to be able to examine a systematic approach to curating digital tools and resources. And then I want to give you some tools so that when you leave the session, you will have what you need to plan, create, and share a curated collection for your teachers or for the team members that you work with. Specifically, you're going to get 10 steps, and those 10 steps are going to be what you need to curate or to help someone else within your team, within your department, within your school, curate a collection for your teachers. You're going to collaborate with each other to share experiences that you've already had with curation tools. And even some hits and misses, because when we're trying to figure stuff like this out, we've got great ideas and we always tend to learn from those ideas of things we might do a little bit differently the next go round. And then you'll analyze a planning resource that you can use when you're creating your own collection. So as we proceed in this session about curation, it is super important that we know what we're talking about. What is curation? Curation is a term that has floated around the media world for a while. So a lot of our media coordinators, media specialists are very familiar with the term curation, but other school personnel are not as familiar with the term. And the way that we are teaching and learning now, curation has simply become essential. We need resources at our fingertips so that we can effectively reach the teachers or the students that we are guiding. So as I said, it's been around for a while for our media specialists. And so if you click on this graphic in the presentation, it's going to share their understanding of curation, which I think is super helpful. So you'll want to check that out for sure. And then what I would like you to do is go to this Padlet link, and on the Padlet link, you're going to share what you already know, what your thoughts are about curation, especially as it applies to instruction in the digital age. So let's switch on over to the Padlet, And I'm going to give you about 3 minutes to share in the Padlet, and then I'll kind of project what we have come up with. So take some time and share your thinking. There's several categories for you to share in about what you know about curation. Thank you. Excellent work sharing your thinking already about curation. I appreciate it. So, curation is when we organize things, when we create a collection that is really organized and usable. And you're going to see lots of different explanations and examples and definitions for this as we go through the 10 steps that I have. So it looks like you already have a good understanding of what it is. And so hopefully we'll just be able to build on that understanding. Now, I will be presenting this particular session again, and I decided to just use this one Padlet for both sessions. So you may want to come back to this Padlet at another time and see the contributions that the second group makes as well. So thank you for contributing to that. So let's take a look at 10 steps to consider when curating digital tools and learning opportunities. First of all, we want to determine a clear purpose for your collection. And then once you've determined that purpose for your collection, you have to stick to it. I think oftentimes we go into creating a collection with a great idea. We need a collection for this. And then once we start working on it, we find all these other super cool things. And then we kind of justify why they fit into that collection as well, even if they really don't. And before we know it, the purpose gets a little murky. So we want to determine a clear purpose, and then we need to stick to it. So some guiding questions for this step would be thinking about who is going to be using the collection. So what's your audience? What do you hope to accomplish by collecting these resources or opportunities for them? And so I know in my position, I have several collections that I need to keep. I need to keep a collection of available professional development sessions for teachers, a collection of professional development sessions for leaders. I need to keep a collection of digital resources that can support instruction. And so each of those collections is distinct, and I need to keep them that way so that they maintain their specific purpose and are usable to the audience that I've identified. So I think there is a great article here by Joyce Valenza, and she was kind enough to give us permission to examine this in our session today. And so I don't necessarily want you to read this deeply right now, but I would like you to kind of skim it. And there are some particular places that I would like you to focus. I'd like you to focus on the third paragraph, and that starts with K-12 such and such. Because this part of the text defines curation in a really effective way for us, I believe. So I want you to look at that definition and then think about how that explanation is either the same or different from how we described curation in our Padlet. And then I want you to scroll down further in the article, and they have a bulleted list of curation situations. Now, there's another bulleted list before you get to that. So keep scrolling until you actually see the section that's called curation situations. And then I would like you to think about which of these situations apply to your work environment. So in which of these situations might you find yourself realistically needing a curated collection? So once you've considered that, this is the part that I'd like you to start sharing in the chat. Which of these situations apply to your work environment? So go ahead and click on the link for the article. And again, I'd like you, for our purposes right now, to focus on the third paragraph so that we have a common understanding of curation for this session, and then scroll on down to the curation situations. So go ahead, read and respond in the chat. All right, so as you've had a chance to look at that explanation in paragraph 3, and then look at the various situations where you may want to consider curation within your role, go ahead and post in the chat one of those situations that resonates for you. I think my team or my department or my school could really benefit from that type of a collection. And you'll notice I've added an example in the chat that I'm super excited for. I'm working on just more specific curation for professional development within our district. So put your ideas in the chat. I'm looking to see them. Oh, I love that idea, Sarah, for creating collections that support student interests. That would be super, super exciting. These are great ideas. Thank you so much for sharing them. I appreciate that. All right, for the sake of time, I'm going to continue, but please keep in mind that you can always go back to this resource for ideas. You can share this resource with other people for whom you think this could really make a difference or be a game changer for. And at the end, you'll notice when I reached out to Joyce to get permission to share her resource, she provided even more resources for us. So I have linked those at the end of the presentation. So I hope you'll find those helpful. Okay. So the second step is to determine in what or where your curated collection is going to live. So now you've decided what that purpose is going to be. Now we've got to decide where that collection is going to live. So some guiding questions for this could be what tool or platform will house your collection. There are so many choices available these days. How will your intended audience access the collection? We want to make that access easy. If it's something where a teacher or any kind of stakeholder has to go through 4 levels of programs to be able to get to that collection, it's simply not going to be used. So we want this collection to have super easy access for the intended audience. And then also, are there any budget or licensing considerations? So there are many free curation tools available, but if you're doing something in particular where you have found a product that you need to pay for your collection, that's something that you need to take into consideration. And also, you really need to help the people who will be curating this collection learn about licensing considerations. So we can't just take everything and share it willy-nilly. We have to make sure that we're paying attention to the licensing and that we're really being good digital citizens as we share collections of resources. So Common Sense Media has a collection that they've curated of great apps and websites that can be used for curation. And so we're going to explore that in a moment. And then also, I have just shared on this screen some examples of curated collections that have been created in our district. So when we first went to remote teaching and learning last year, one of our middle school instructional coaches, Angela Westmoreland, created a distance learning support. And she really created it for her school. But we found that it was something that teachers in all of our schools wanted. And so she gave us permission to link it on our professional development Canvas course for our district. And then she also gave me permission to share it within today's session. And then I actually created two collections for the other session that I'm doing for NCBOLD. And so I've linked them here just so that you get some ideas. Now, all of these have been done in Wakelet, which is one of the programs that you'll see listed, but there's also other ideas here. So I'd like you to click on the link and just see if you notice, oh, we use that curation tool already. I never really considered that being part of curation. So just kind of scan through those at the Common Sense Media link. And then if you already use something that is fantastic for curation that you don't see on the list or that I have not highlighted, please feel free at any time to unmute and share, or to share that within the chat. We want to know all the great things that are out there to use for this purpose.
Jennifer?
It's looking like that first example isn't linked, is it?
It's not.
Okay, I will correct that.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, that example's linked now. I apologize. All right, so please feel free. Go ahead and unmute. Did you recognize any of these tools for curation? Have you used any of them? Do you have a favorite?
I love Symbaloo. I use it all the time. I have it at home for my personal stuff, and then I have one for school, and then I have one that I share through the library.
Fantastic. That's great. So I love hearing how you're using it in different ways too for different purposes. Great example. Now, of course, we're talking about curation in this session for leaders, but also kind of keep in the back of your mind, how can this become a way that students can create? So you can kind of be thinking about how students can curate things that they need and that they want to access as well. All right, thank you for sharing. So step 3 is we've got the purpose, we've got how we're going to house the collection. Now we need to determine who's going to manage the collection and what the specific responsibilities will be. And this is such an essential key to being able to build and maintain a really useful tool for your teachers or for your stakeholders. So some questions to consider for this are, will one person be your curator, or will you adopt a team approach? What process will be in place to determine which resources or opportunities should be shared? Will there be deadlines or reviews as a part of your process? So again, if too many people become involved in the curation, which is fantastic to have people curate and collaborate, but then do we start veering away from the intention and the purpose, or are we able to have that team approach and still stay laser focused on what the purpose of the collection is? If you have people submit things that they think would be considered, who's going to review those? Who is going to actually add them to the resource? So these are all things to consider as you're beginning your collection. I really liked some of the ideas here. Now, this is a great article here about digital content curation, so you're welcome to examine this at any time. Some pieces that I'd like to highlight. Within this article, Dr. Adone actually refers to some work by a different Joyce, and I've actually reached out to her and asked for permission to share, because I love the terms that she coined when thinking about people that may be involved in creating curated collections. So you may have some closed doors that you work with. You may have some hoarders, some Scrooges, some tabloids, or some robots. And so each of those people that you may encounter or that you may work with, they can impact the effectiveness of a curated collection. So, if you have a hoarder, that hoarder may dump every resource that he or she comes across into the collection. And then it just becomes messy and teachers don't want to use it. At the same time, you may have some closed doors, some people who have great ideas, but they're not willing to share those ideas. And so just some really neat terms. And again, these terms are shared in this article with some explanations for each. And then when I reached out to Joyce for permission to use her terms, she also shared some additional curation resources with us. So those are linked at the end of the presentation as well. So some other things to think about when you're considering who is going to work on this collection, we need to consider time. Is this a huge time commitment that you're asking for someone? And if so, how will that fit into their role and responsibilities? Access, who is going to have access to control the collection, to add to the collection, to modify the collection, to view the collection? Knowledge. Think about what skill sets, what background knowledge you need different people to have who are going to be contributing, because we don't always want a collection to have just one perspective. So what are some other perspectives that we have access to that would be important for this collection? And then organizational skills. If you are selecting people to create a curated collection, it should probably be some people who have some pretty refined organizational skills. Is there any other considerations that you've experienced or that you're thinking of that would benefit the group? If so, please feel free to unmute and share your thoughts. Okay. So step 4 in creating this collection is to determine how your collection is going to be introduced. So when's the best time to share? So there's time to explore without overwhelming staff and teachers. How can you make the introduction of the collection fun and exciting? So, I think about, we have a lot of teacher work days at the beginning of the school year, and there's lots and lots of professional development that our teachers experience. So they're being told how to do this and where to find this and what they're supposed to use for this. And they're learning this new tool and these new procedures. That's probably not going to be the best time to share a curated collection that you've made with the teachers, because they are already going to be on information overload. So when would be a good time to share that? And how can you make that a really fun event? Like, we have made this for you, and we are so excited to be able to offer this to you, to receive your feedback on it, and to really give you some time that is devoted to exploring this collection that we feel is valuable to your practice. So does anyone have some ideas of some do's or don'ts for launching a new initiative? Go ahead and unmute. So if you are going to share something new with a group of your stakeholders, what are some ways you've done that to make that really fun or exciting? Or what are some lessons that you've learned? Hey, this just is not going to work to launch something.
For me, it's kind of start small. I think some teachers can get overwhelmed very quickly. So I like to start with a few things, a very maybe precise application, and get them comfortable with using the way that it's curated, the tool or whatever, and then kind of start to expand outward. One of the ways I did that was I actually taught a PD by using an escape room. And in the escape room, they had to use a few of those tools. And so a lot of them were like, cool, I'm going to use that. And so it was kind of a way to introduce it in a little underhanded kind of way.
Fantastic. I love that. And I think also, if you start small like that, you're able to get their feedback more quickly, and they may have some suggestions. And then if you can validate those suggestions, like, that's a great idea, I'm going to add that to the collection, then that's going to want to like suck them back into the collection too. Oh, she really did value my contribution. Look, she added it there. So I think that's super exciting. Thank you so much. Step 5 in the process is to determine expectations for youth, for use, for growth, for application. So what evidence of use is reasonable? If you have created this collection, it's because you feel like it's important and you want people to be using whatever you've collected. So how are you going to know if that's happening? And then how are you going to balance having expectations for use and keeping users excited and positive about the collection? So something that I've seen happen before, oh my gosh, we've got this wonderful new thing, teachers get excited about it, and then the expectations kind of like just pop their excitement balloon. So, okay, and I need evidence of this in your lesson plan. We're going to be checking for this. You need to do this at least 6 times a week. And then all of a sudden it's not fun anymore. Now it's something I have to do. So we want to balance that. Yes, there are going to be expectations for use, but at the same time, maintain it as a really positive piece for your stakeholders. So along with that comes step 6, which is determine some incentives for use or application. So how do you establish a positive culture for learning and sharing? What can you do to suck teachers in and to keep them coming? So can anyone share an idea of when they have launched something, or maybe something you're getting ready to launch in terms of an initiative, and how you're going to do that in a way that makes it really positive? Any thoughts of how you could possibly incentivize the process so teachers are using it, meeting your expectations, but at the same time being excited about going and using it?
I don't want to be the only one talking. I'm sorry. I'm kind of hanging back to let other people have a chance. But one of the cool things I had an assistant principal do was, as she was doing observations, people who were using some of the tools that we had talked about, she would collect them each week and enter them into a drawing and draw out prizes and announce them over the intercom at the end of the week, each week. So people were really wanting to get entered into some of those drawings. So that some people were more inclined to use the tools more frequently. And it was fun. They didn't feel like, she was coming in to do an observation, but they were actually happy to see her come in. So that was kind
That's
of cool.
awesome. Thank you. Anyone else want to pop in with an idea? I know one school that I worked in pretty regularly, they were really trying to build their teachers' familiarity with digital tools. And this is before we went to emergency remote teaching and learning. And so they held lots of different little mini PDs that were hosted by teachers within the school. And once they had attended a PD on, for example, how to use Flipgrid or something, they each had like this little chart with they get like a little badge that they could put on their chart that showed, hey, now I know how to use Flipgrid, or now I know how to use Mentimeter. And so the teachers had fun seeing the different little badges outside the doors. And then the teacher that had done the PD, of course, was super proud. Like, look, I taught all of these other teachers what I know about Flipgrid or what I know about this digital tool. And so it really just helped establish that positive culture within their building for learning and for sharing. All right. And so if you are not comfortable chatting, which is okay, that you may not want to unmute and share in front of others, I would like you to go to menti.com. It's linked here, or there's a QR code to access it, and just explain to us how you establish a positive culture for learning and sharing. How do you get your teachers or your teammates to share new things that they're discovering, or to share things that work? So if you'll please briefly describe those on this Mentimeter. I'm going to give you a minute to contribute, and then I will share that so that we can see the results of the contributions. So go ahead to the Menti and share how you establish a positive culture for learning and sharing. Exactly. And I love that I'm seeing some recognition that at least I interpret it as different teachers are at different places in their journey and they have different needs. And so when we're trying to teach them something like maybe a new collection of digital tools that they can use to enhance their instruction, um, we do want to make sure that we have tools at varying levels so that a teacher who's not real comfortable has something that's real easy to implement, and then we celebrate their success for implementing, and we're already thinking in the back of our mind, okay, what is the next logical one for that teacher to take on, rather than just everybody's got to learn this, whether they're at that level of comfort or not. So I really like that I've been seeing several references to individualizing this for teachers, letting teachers within a collection um, establish a pathway that really meets their needs. And so I'm excited to see these responses. Thank you very much. All right, let's see if I can get out of this easily. Nope, but that is all right. Okay, so right, and it had flipped me way back towards the beginning for some reason. So let's get back to where we are. All right, so we've talked about some positive ways to be able to launch this initiative, but as an educational leader, it is also super important that you're thinking about how you are going to lead by example. So what is your role as a leader going to be during the introduction of this initiative? How will you publicly and authentically use the collection? So let's say your group is trying to learn more about a certain strategy or approach to teaching young learners how to read. So you have teachers who are contributing some resources that they have found to support the standards that you're focusing on there. But wouldn't it be great if they also see that you're contributing some research or a strategy or a tool or an article that supports that learning? So they know you're aware of the collection, you understand the purpose of the collection, you value that collection so much that you are a part of that learning community with them. Um, and then to take it even further, how will you help establish use of this collection as a part of who you are? So you want your teachers or your group to start identifying themselves as, hey, if you work in this environment, it means that we collaborate. It means that we collect tools and we share with each other. It means that we are committed to helping each other provide the best possible instruction for students, or to help each other become the best that we can possibly be within our role. And so we want teachers, you can kind of think of it as if you had a teacher that was to move from your school to a different school who may not be doing this curation process, you want them to be like, what do you mean you don't have that? I mean, that's part of who we were at their former school. So you want it to be to really have that culture of collaboration and sharing. And as the leader, you certainly influence that. Step 8, determine how your curated collection of tools and resources will impact students. Remember, everything we do within a school is to support student success. So does your collection support aspects of your school improvement plan? What evidence are you going to gather, and how are you going to gather that evidence to determine the effectiveness of your collection? And step 9, Determine how your curated collection of tools and resources will directly impact students. So how can teachers and students replicate this process to create their own curated collections for other purposes? So like Jennifer referenced earlier, we're going to start small, even in this process of curation, but look at how big this process can become, and look at how important it can become to the central mission of your school family or of the team or department that you work with. So this is another article. It is from one of my absolute favorite blogs, The Cult of Pedagogy, with Jennifer Gonzalez. And it talks about how curation can actually boost higher order thinking. And so we're not going to explore this article together, but I do want you to have access to it. And of course, whenever you're doing professional reading, you should be thinking about what idea are you most excited about, and then link to that. What action are you going to take as a result of that excitement? And the sooner you can do it after reading something, the greater chance that idea is going to stick when we're learning from our reading and from our research. The final step that I have in terms of creating this curated collection that's going to create a positive environment is to determine how to leverage your curated collection to positively impact your recruitment and retention efforts. So everywhere needs teachers right now, and we need great teachers, and we need teachers who come to us with that spirit of collaboration, who come to us excited about new ideas. And something as simple as a curated collection can do that for your teachers. So when you're recruiting teachers and when you're trying to convince them that your school is the school that they need to pick, I work in a very large district, so we've got almost 90 schools in our district. If a teacher is coming from out of state, a principal really has to sell why that teacher should put their school within our district. Excuse me. So think about sharing with a prospective teacher, hey, look, and we have this collection of resources. This has been compiled by our staff, and this is how we share great ideas and support each other in our teaching. So use that as a way to kind of show teachers the culture that you've established within your school. And then how are you going to use that collection to celebrate your current employees so that they feel spoiled and supported? Like, oh, we've added 10 more resources to this collection. Thank you so much for using it. We see how much you value it. And so we went out and we found some more things that we think are going to really support this particular initiative or endeavor. And so we at this school always want to make sure that we're showing you how much we support the work that you do. And so this really, again, can become part of who you are as a school if you really follow these steps and process to make this collection important and to show that you value it. So what I have done is I have created a template for you that basically just has the ideas and the concepts that we've talked about today. And so this could be used as a planning resource for you or for whatever teachers or team members you have that decide to actually create a curated collection. So it's going to have them think about the purpose and really flesh out the roles and responsibilities, the expectations, the incentives, all of these things that we talked about. It's going to have a place in this plan so that when we go to actually create, we can keep that laser-like focus that's so important. So if you would like a copy of this planning document, if you click on this image, it is going to give you a forced copy that, of course, you can make absolutely your own. But I hope that it serves as a reminder of what this process is So if you're creating it, you don't have to continuously go through this presentation. Instead, you kind of have everything concisely on this planning form. So hopefully that will be helpful for you. So we have thought a lot about curating. And so I'd really like to hear from a bunch of you now. And so here are some possible sentence starters. But if you would like to share something else or another idea that this session has sparked for you, something that you'd like to share that you think we could all benefit from, or an action that you want to take, please feel free to substitute your own sentence instead of these. But if you need a sentence starter, you could say, I 100% or 25% represents maybe how I feel about this. Or with 75% certainty, I can say such and such. So if we could get a bunch of people to unmute, of course, not all at the same time, but we would like to hear from some different voices about some facts and feelings about curating.
This is going to sound lame because I'm trying to think of, I have so many ideas. So I have to narrow down my ideas is where I'm at. So I know it's going to take time to do that. And then, but then I'm also thinking in the back of my head, but you can't go too slow because school's upon us. So that's kind of where I'm at. So right now I have so much information and so many things I want to do. So I appreciate that. That's good. I like that, but it's just, I have to narrow it down.
I think I might be in that same place as you. I'm counting off the days on the calendar before teachers are back and then before students are back. And, I've got this idea and this idea and this idea. But what can I successfully launch right now that is going to be the most useful? So I totally feel you. Thank you for sharing that. Oh no, the template didn't work. Let me check that. I will definitely make sure that template is accessible for you. All right, thank you for sharing your ideas. I love that idea about curating that collection of SEL resources. I think that is something that everybody needs right now. I know our district is working on putting something together for that as well. So that is a great example of a collection of resources that's very needed by teachers right now. All right, as I referenced earlier in the session, the people that I had reached out to for permission to use their resources shared additional resources with us. So this is the first Joyce Valenza. This is what she shared for your curation learning process. And then the second Joyce, who had those terms in terms of porters and closed doors and things like that, has also written an additional resource about her thoughts. And so those are tagged in here for your, hopefully for your pleasure, and so that you can continue to grow in this area. That is the information that I have for you today. If you would like to collaborate with me, or if you have any questions for me, I can be reached on Twitter. My handle is @JLG523, or through my work email, jenniferlgraham@ccs.k12.nc.us. And again, here is the bit.ly so that you have access to our presentation today. And of course, credit for the slide template that we used. And dum-da-dum, if you are looking for credit for the session, you are going to use the QR code that is hidden behind this green screen. So let me go ahead and take care of that for you. Well, move the magical green screen. There is your QR code so that you can receive credit for the session. And the process to do that is described as well. If the QR code is not working for you or is not your preference, there's also an alternate attendance form at this bit.ly address. And then the final piece that we really wanted to make sure that you had time to do within the session is to complete the feedback form. And so that is linked on this slide. And so I am going to remain on if anybody has any questions or comments for me, but I'm also going to try to respect your reflection time so that you can provide some valuable feedback, which will help me grow and which will help the organizers of NCBOLD to grow. So again, if you have any ideas as a result of this session, please amplify them by sharing on social media with hashtag NCBOLD. Feel free to tag me at JLG523. And thank you so much for joining this session about curation within NCBOLD 2021.